Life has a way of slipping through your fingers when you least expect it, doesn't it? Like sand, no matter how tightly you hold, the grains still escape. I used to think I had everything. A thriving career, a woman I loved, and dreams big enough to fill the sky. My name is Liam Davies, and this is the story of how it all fell apart, and how I found a reason to live again. It began years before the betrayal, before the accident, before my life unraveled. I met her, Amelia Penzy, at a glittering gala, the kind of event where ambition hangs thick in the air and people wear their power like a badge. I was a renowned architect, known for my innovative designs and cutting-edge ideas that seemed to always capture the media's attention. I was there to network, to leave an impression. The chandeliers above cast a golden glow, reflecting off the polished floors, and the room buzzed with quiet chatter. I saw her immediately, Amelia Penzy. An heiress with influence, the kind of woman whose name held weight in the construction industry. She wasn't the type to demand attention, but she commanded it effortlessly. Her emerald green dress shimmered as she glided through the crowd, her presence almost ethereal in its quiet confidence. We exchanged polite pleasantries, a handshake, a brief conversation. Nothing more. I didn't think much of it at the time, just another face in the crowd. She had a kind smile, but there was a certain distance to her, something I couldn't quite place. As I looked around, I couldn't help but notice the attention Eleanor, the rising star in the entertainment world, my fiancée at the time, drew from the cameras. We were the perfect couple, after all. The media ate up our relationship, painting our lives as one of love and success, but I never realized how much that spotlight weighed on Eleanor, or how it might have affected the people around us. And Amelia? She was always at the forefront, always noticed by the cameras, but carefully avoiding the glare of the press. I didn't know then how deeply she had been watching me, admiring from afar. But, fate has a unique ways of weaving lives together, doesn't it? After that night, Amelia and I kept crossing paths. From boardrooms meetings, project pitches, charity events, wherever I went, she was there. She was more than just the heiress to Penzy Construction, she was a force of nature, poised and sharp. It was hard not to admire her. She carried herself with an elegance that made her stand out, but it wasn't just her beauty or status that caught my attention, it was her mind. The way she saw angles others missed, the brilliance in the way she thought. She wasn't the type to speak much, but when she did, oh, her words were weighty and measured. I'd watch her lean forward when she was invested in an idea, the way her eyes lit up with passion. It was clear that she had ambition, the kind that matched my own, though she never sought the public's eye like I did. In the rare moments we spoke, it was as if the world around us disappeared. We talked about innovation, about our shared love of creating captivating structures that would leave a mark on the world. And yet, she always kept a part of herself hidden. There was a vulnerability to her, a quiet yearning that was difficult to miss if you knew what to look for. But I never did. I was too wrapped up in my own world, my own ambitions, my own love life with Eleanor, the one I and the media adored. But this isn't just a story about Amelia. This is also about Eleanor. My Eleanor. The woman I thought I knew, the one who turned my world upside down in every way imaginable. Eleanor was intoxicating. The world seemed to stop when she entered a room. It wasn't just her beauty, it was the way she made you feel like the only person that mattered. Our love had been fast and fiery, the kind of whirlwind romance that left you dizzy, unable to think straight. We built a life together, the kind of life I thought would last forever, weekends getaways exploring new cities, late nights dreaming of the future, mornings wrapped in each other's arms. She made me believe in forever. But forever, as I learned, can be a lie. The media loved us, of course. Our faces were plastered across every magazine, every tabloid. The perfect couple. The power couple. Everything was flawless on the surface. But behind closed doors, it was different. I didn't know it then, but Eleanor was hiding something. Or rather, someone. I was blind to it, too wrapped up in my own world of creativity. I saw only the love we shared, the moments we built, the life we planned together. What I couldn't see were the cracks beginning to form, the betrayal lurking in the shadows. She had her secrets. And when I found out, when I finally saw the truth, it was a blow I never expected. It was a betrayal so deep it shattered me. It wasn't just the affair. It was the realization that the woman I thought I knew, the woman I trusted, had been lying to me all along. Eleanor was never the woman I thought she was. She wasn't the partner I imagined would stand beside me through everything. But the truth has a way of clawing its way to the surface. And once it does, nothing can stay hidden forever. It started with little things. Missed calls, unreplied or late response to my messages. Conversations that felt off. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was overthinking. But the truth has a way of creeping in, doesn't it? Slowly, relentlessly, until you can't ignore it anymore. One evening, I came home early. It was one of those days when I felt at most the house was quiet. Too quiet. A dull, unsettling itch in the back of my mind that something was wrong. Eleanor had been acting distant, her laughter strained, her eyes always elsewhere. She'd come home late a few times recently, claiming work had kept her late, but it didn't add up. Nothing added up. The text message was what pushed me over the edge. It was that evening when I heard it vibrate against the kitchen counter, her phone lighting up with a message notification. Without thinking, I picked it up. She never kept her phone locked, never thought she had to. And that's when I saw it. There were multiple messages. I didn't want to believe it. The words burned into my mind like fire. From Ethan. The first one read, "I miss you. I hate how we have to hide this, but it's worth it." My heart pounded in my chest, but I kept reading, as if my own mind couldn't process the weight of what I was seeing. Then came another, just few seconds later, "I can't wait for tonight. Don't worry, Liam will never find out. He's so blind, it's laughable. All that time he spends, building his empire, while we get to do whatever we want." The last one hit like a punch to the gut. "When he touches you, it disgusts me. I can't stand it. But it's fine. Just keep pretending. No one will know." My hands trembled, but I couldn't stop myself from reading more. "We're untouchable, Eleanor. He'll never figure it out. No one will ever do." Each word was like a nail driven deep into my chest, a wound that kept bleeding no matter how much I tried to make sense of it. I couldn't unsee it. My brother. My own flesh and blood. And her. Eleanor, my Eleanor, the woman I loved. How could they do this? How could they betray me in the worst way possible? I felt my pulse quicken, the rage bubbling up from the pit of my stomach. I wanted to throw the phone. I wanted to break it. But instead, I stood there frozen, staring at the messages, each one a blade to the heart. I read the words over and over, like some kind of sick joke. And then I heard the footsteps. Eleanor came in from the other room, probably the bathroom, her face still glowing from the shower or whatever she had been doing, too calm, too collected. Her eyes met mine for a split second, and in that moment, she knew. She knew exactly what I was holding, knew exactly what was happening. Her smile faltered, just a little. A crack in the perfect facade she'd been wearing for months. I didn't speak. I couldn't. What was there left to say? The phone, the messages, they were all I needed. I didn't need to hear her excuses. But I couldn't help it. The words spilled out of me, a mixture of disbelief and fury. "What is this, Eleanor?" I managed to say, my voice trembling with the weight of it. "What the hell is this?" Her eyes darted to the phone I held, then back to me, panic flashing in her gaze before she quickly masked it with a forced calm. "Liam, I..." "How long, Eleanor?" I interrupted, taking a step forward, the phone still in my hand. How long has this been going on? How long have you been sleeping with my brother? Her face drained of color, and she took an unsteady step back. For the first time, I saw her as she truly was, vulnerable, afraid, caught in her own lies. She couldn't lie her way out of this one. Not anymore. Liam, please. She started, her voice weak. She took a deep breath, then another, like she was trying to compose herself, but I could see the cracks beneath her perfect mask. It's not what you think. The words hung in the air, an empty excuse, a plea for mercy that I wasn't willing to give. I was done being merciful. Not what I think. I asked bitterly, my eyes burning with the fury that I was trying so hard to contain. You're telling me that this, I waved the phone in front of her, isn't what it looks like? You and Ethan. My brother. You think I'm stupid, don't you? She flinched, but then she straightened up, trying to pull herself together. There was a desperation in her eyes, the same desperation that came when someone realized they'd been caught and had no way out. Liam, it just happened, okay? It was never supposed to be like this. She sounded like she was pleading for forgiveness, but there was nothing in her voice that felt sincere. Just more lies. You were always so busy with work, and Ethan and I, we were just close. We never wanted to hurt you. Her words made my skin crawl. She wasn't even sorry. She wasn't apologizing for the betrayal. She was sorry because she got caught. And that was the moment I realized I couldn't stand here anymore, listening to her lies. I couldn't stand to hear her tell me that she never wanted to hurt me, because she already had. She'd already broken me. You never wanted to hurt me? I repeated, my voice rising with every word. You don't think this is hurting me, Eleanor? You don't think I'm standing here, holding the proof of your infidelity, and you expect me to believe you? She opened her mouth to respond, but I couldn't let her finish. I couldn't hear any more of her excuses, her justifications. I was losing control, and the anger was too much to keep bottled up. You disgust me, I said quietly, the words tasting like poison on my tongue. It felt like the air between us had thickened, as if everything that had ever mattered to me, everything I had ever believed in, was crumbling to dust in front of me. She stepped back, her voice trembling now, Liam, please, it's not what you think. We were just. I was just. But I didn't want to hear it anymore. I grabbed my coat off the back of the chair, the weight of the betrayal pressing down on me. I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. I couldn't be in the same space as her, not after everything she had done. Liam, don't go, she called after me, her voice cracking. I didn't stop. I couldn't. I slammed the door behind me and ran to the car, the rain pouring down like a flood, each drop a reminder of the storm brewing inside me. The anger. The pain. The crushing weight of everything I had just learned. But I didn't think. I didn't care. I started the car and drove, faster, harder, as if the road could take me somewhere far away from this nightmare. The rain lashed against the windshield as the car tore down the empty roads. Each drop felt like a hammer, striking the glass with the same relentless rhythm as my heart. I gripped the wheel tighter, my knuckles white, the tension in my body almost unbearable. The streetlights blurred in the downpour, their halos smearing into the darkness, but I didn't care. I wasn't thinking anymore. I wasn't even driving, I was running. Her words echoed in my head, over and over, like a broken record. We didn't want to hurt you. How absurd it sounded now. Hurt me? She and Ethan had shattered me. They'd taken everything, our love, my trust, the life we'd built, and reduced it to rubble. I had nothing left. The road curved sharply ahead, but my mind was elsewhere. I barely noticed the slickness of the pavement or the way the tires struggled to grip. All I could see was her face, the way she had tried to explain it all away, the way she had looked at me, not with love or remorse, but with fear, for herself. For her lies. And then it happened. The tires lost traction. The car skidded, spinning wildly out of control. I felt the weightlessness, the terrifying moment when the world flipped upside down. Metal crunched, glass shattered, and then, silence. The world came back slowly, as though it had been shattered and hastily glued together. The sterile scent of antiseptic hung thick in the air. Bright, fluorescent lights burned through my closed eyelids, pulling me out of the darkness. There was a steady rhythm, a soft, mechanical beeping that felt like the only tether holding me to reality. My body ached as if it had been taken apart and reassembled with parts that didn't quite belong to me. I blinked, my vision swimming as I tried to focus. The room was a blur of white walls, white sheets, white uniforms moving in the periphery. My head throbbed, and I closed my eyes again, trying to piece together how I had ended up here. Images flickered in my mind, rain, headlights, the crushing sound of metal. Eleanor's face. But the memories were fragments, slipping through my fingers like sand. And then I saw her. It wasn't Eleanor, though for a fleeting moment, I expected it to be. No, the woman sitting beside my bed was someone I hadn't expected at all, Amelia. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, her knuckles pale from the tension. Her shoulders were hunched slightly, as if she were bracing herself for something. But it was her face that held me captive, a mixture of worry and relief. It didn't make sense. Why would she be here? Liam, she said softly, her voice trembling as though she were testing the waters. Her eyes searched mine, trying to gauge if I was really there with her. Her voice was familiar, a sound I had long associated with business meetings and professional pleasantries. But here, in this moment, it was different. There was something raw in her tone, something vulnerable that I hadn't heard before. Her presence was like a balm, easing the jagged edges of the pain that pulsed through me. But I didn't understand. Why would someone like Amelia Penzy, an heiress, a woman far best in my circle, be sitting by my bedside? Amelia? My voice cracked, hoarse and weak, but it was enough to draw her attention. Her eyes locked with mine, full of relief and something more. A vulnerability, maybe. Something I hadn't noticed before. "You're awake," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Thank God. I tried to focus, tried to process the reality of her sitting there. Amelia Penzy, heiress, businesswoman, a woman who had always been a figure at the edge of my life, not someone who was supposed to be here. Why not Eleanor? But Amelia, despite all the distance she'd kept, she had always been present in the quiet corners of my world. Through meetings, through projects, through everything, we'd developed a friendship, built on respect and the shared passion for innovation. Amelia had never tried to push herself into my life, but somehow, over the years, her presence had become a constant, someone who always had a way of making things feel less heavy, less complicated. "Why are you here, Amelia?" I croaked. "Why not Eleanor?" Her expression shifted, the smile fading into something more somber. She didn't immediately answer, her gaze lingering on the hand she had just brushed against mine. Instead, there was a faint chuckle, a soft, almost sad laugh. "Well," she began, her voice quiet, measured, "Eleanor isn't the one who stayed, Liam. She isn't the one who waited." I stared at her, a part of me still grappling with the sheer absurdity of it all. Eleanor. The woman who had consumed my life, who had been there through everything, at least, that's what I thought. But here, in front of me, was Amelia, someone who had watched from the sidelines, someone who had seen more of my life than I realized. She hadn't been the loudest voice, but she had always been there. Waiting. But why? "I don't understand," I muttered, my thoughts spinning. "Why not Eleanor? Why you?" Amelia hesitated before speaking, her fingers grazing my hand, as though she needed to make sure I was still there, still alive. "Liam," she said softly, "I've always been here. Just, not in the way you thought, not in the way she was." She paused, her eyes flicking to the door as if waiting for someone else to walk in. It wasn't my place to intrude when you had Eleanor. I never wanted to be the other woman. I absorbed her words, and for the first time, I saw it clearly, the friendship that had blossomed quietly over time. The late-night work sessions, the shared frustrations, the mutual respect. All of it had been there, buried beneath layers of other people's drama, beneath the noise of the world. I wanted to ask her so many things. Why had she never said anything? Why had she kept this distance? But before I could speak, the door opened, and the last person I expected to see walked in. Eleanor. She stepped into the room, followed by Ethan, her expression unreadable, eyes flickering from me to Amelia. The tension in the air thickened instantly. Amelia's hand recoiled slightly, a silent gesture of defiance or perhaps resignation. She didn't look at Eleanor, but I could feel the coldness between them. Eleanor's gaze swept over the room, briefly stopping on me before moving to Amelia. "How is he?" she asked, her voice clipped. But there was something in her tone, something that didn't fit with the image she'd once projected. Was it guilt? Regret? Maybe both. I turned away, unable to bear the pain of betrayal and tension. Eleanor was here, but her presence didn't feel comforting. It felt like a reminder of everything that had gone wrong. Her betrayal, her silence during my recovery. She had come, but only because there were reporters outside the hospital, and it was expected of her. Ethan stood off to the side, awkwardly, like he didn't know how to fit into the dynamic either. Amelia, on the other hand, was a quiet strength beside me. She hadn't needed to make any grand gestures. She was just there. Eleanor fidgeted for a moment, clearly not knowing what to do with herself. I should go, she muttered, glancing at me one last time. I'll leave you two alone. Amelia gave a small nod, not looking at Eleanor. Of course. As Eleanor and Ethan left, the door clicking shut behind them, the room seemed to breathe again. It was just Amelia and me. No more pretense. No more noise. For the first time, I felt the weight of everything that had happened, the lies, the betrayals, and yet, there was something else there too. A possibility. Amelia, with all her grace and patience, hadn't been a part of the world that had burned me. She had stayed in the shadows, watching, waiting, but never intruding. And maybe, just maybe, I was ready to finally see her for who she was. The woman who had always been there. Months passed in a blur. Slowly, the fog of confusion cleared, and I started piecing my life back together. The pain from the accident lingered, but the emotional wounds, those would take longer to heal. I couldn't deny the twisted irony that had come to define my life. The betrayal that once felt like a jagged knife had carved a path I never saw coming. Eleanor and Ethan, the two people I once trusted most, had become strangers. Eleanor's visits were few, and when she did come, there was a coldness in her eyes that matched the distance between us. She would apologize, but those words felt empty, almost mechanical, as though she was more concerned with the appearance of remorse than the truth of it. She never once asked about my recovery. It was as if my pain didn't matter as long as the picture-perfect life they had built stayed intact. Ethan, always the loyal brother, would stand by her side, but his guilt was visible, hanging over him like a dark cloud. I could tell their relationship was crumbling under the weight of their secrets. But the media had caught wind of their drama, rumors started flying, accusations swirling, and the facade they had carefully crafted was shattered. But honestly, I couldn't bring myself to care about their downfall. They had made their choices, and they were living with the consequences. I wasn't responsible for their guilt. I was responsible for my own healing. And then there was Amelia. Amelia had been my quiet anchor. She wasn't there because she had to be. She was there because, without me even realizing it, she had always been a part of my life. From the first time we met at that gala, she had quietly stayed in my orbit. But it wasn't until after the accident that I started to understand the depth of her presence in my life. While I fought to make sense of the wreckage of my past, Amelia was there, steadfast, patient, and kind. She had always kept her distance out of respect, but never left. She wasn't waiting for a moment to swoop in, she was simply waiting for me to see what had been there all along. It was a quiet kind of love, one built on years of friendship and mutual respect. There were no grand gestures, no desperate confessions. We simply grew into each other's lives in a way that felt natural. It wasn't about the media, the glamour, or what others expected. It was about the two of us, finding our way through the wreckage and building something real. The day we got married wasn't grand. It wasn't flashy. It was quiet, just a small ceremony, a few close friends and family. The weight of what we had was enough. There were no cameras, no flashing lights, just the soft hum of a new beginning. Amelia Penzy, the heiress who had once seemed so far removed from my world, had become my world. I had no doubt anymore, she was the woman I had been waiting for, even if I didn't know it until now. As for Eleanor and Ethan, they were a part of my past, a part that no longer held any claim over me. What they had done, what they had torn apart, was no longer my burden to carry. Karma had a way of making people face the truth, and it was doing just that. The love I had once thought was everything had faded into the background, replaced by the kind of love that couldn't be destroyed by betrayal or lies. And now, standing next to Amelia, my future, I realized something. Sometimes, the love we are meant to find is the one that comes quietly, slowly, and without fanfare. It doesn't need to be rushed or forced. It just happens, and when it does, it's more beautiful than anything we could have imagined. Question for you. If you believe cheating is okay, don't subscribe. But if you know that betrayal can destroy lives, tear apart families, and leave scars that last forever, then subscribe. Let's remind ourselves that love, trust, and loyalty are worth more than a fleeting lie.